Hello, hello, and good morning. Happy Thursday. Happy pre-Friday to you, Ted. Welcome.
And to you.
Welcome to another episode of the TMI Show, where the T of the show, Ted Rall, is back for day 2. We're back together, and Ted is back safely on Earth.
My favorite planet.
Wherever Ted went, I'm Manila Chan, of course. Wherever Ted went, he lost weight, he says.
I did.
In all the places.
Yes.
Because space does that to you, Ted. It's the thinning of the bones. It's the thinning your bones get. I don't know what. They've done a study on this. You know, like the astronauts that are in space for a long time, their bones get. I don't know if it's like they get stretched out because they stretch. They get taller too, and then their bones get really skinny or something. So it's very straight.
Well, bone density is overrated. I mean, we need to learn to do the exoskeleton thing.
Just become big blob mushes of people. America's headed that way.
Or like bugs.
Well, look, America is headed that way with our whole food system. It's bound to turn us into big blobs of mush where our bones can no longer even bear the weight of our own skin suit. So it's true.
I, for one, cannot wait.
Well, you guys are tuned into the TMI Show. We talk about random stuff. It's a lot of news, but then you get a lot of random stuff like this. And of course, word of warning, there's some F-bombs sometimes, many times. We're live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, so please be sure to like and follow this show. If you are in the position to do so, please join us as a Rumble Premium subscriber so you can catch up with our premium content and the premium content of many other official Rumble creators as well, where I guess that's where everybody posts their spiciest conversations with the most F-bombs. I think that's the whole point of this, right? Is to be extra spicy. I don't know. I'm just kidding.
Indeed.
Totally kidding. But of course, join us here for free Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. All we ask is you hit that like button and at least follow us. So that way you tell the algorithms that, hey, Ted and Manila are actually being watched. We would greatly appreciate that. That's a great way to help this show for free. So I think that's a good trade-off. What do you say? Yeah.
I think so. I agree.
Trade-off. All right. So with that, we have it's not right off the bat. We're going to talk about the thing that's breaking right now, happening right now. And then we'll get into our fight with producer Robbie, who's been brawling with Ted and I all morning.
He has been spicy.
Very. And I think the viewers, because he's filled in when I was out ill and he's filled in while you were hovering in the stratosphere. The viewers know where producer Robbie stands, and it's, I don't know, almost diametrically opposed to you and I, Ted.
True.
Yeah. I mean, we can see some Ted and I can see some parts to valid points that Robbie has, but for the most part, it's diametrically opposed when it comes to birthright citizenship, and we have comparisons. We have receipts on all sides. So stay tuned for that fight because it's gonna be. So with that, let's head over to some news topics, Ted. Let's hit the jaws.
Late last night, Russian President Putin named the country's delegation for talks that are going to hopefully happen in Ukraine today.
No, in Istanbul.
Well, no, that's right, in Istanbul, but with the Ukrainians. The Russian team will be headed by Russian presidential aide Vladimir Medinsky. That's a sort of a change. We thought it was going to be the foreign minister who was going to do that, Sergei, but it's not going to be him. This is, with all things Russian, it's symbolic. He was the head of the negotiations with Kiev back in 2022 that broke down before the armed conflict began. The delegation also includes Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Galuzin, Deputy Defense Minister Alexander Fomin, and the head of military intelligence Igor Kostyukov. Apart from the negotiators, Putin also unveiled a team of experts who will participate, composed of several military and civil officials as well as various diplomats. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is en route to Istanbul. He may have already arrived alongside several top officials, including his own head of office, Andrei Yermak, Defense Minister Rustem Umerov. I think a head of office is like the chief of staff, if I'm not mistaken. And his foreign minister, Andrei Sybiga. The exact composition of the Ukrainian team, however, will be determined by Zelensky upon arrival. Zelensky says, of course, signed a law saying that no one who's Ukrainian is allowed to negotiate with Russia. However, he now says, this is a change, that the law doesn't apply to him personally.
Well, Ted, in a democracy, presidents are above the law.
Well, as we're seeing in our own democracy right now.
Yeah, obviously.
That's true. Anyway, so he's calling for direct meeting with Putin. By the way, for the record, the meeting was Putin's idea, but Putin's not going. But Putin never said he was going. Putin just said that Russia and Ukraine should get together in Istanbul Thursday, and which is to say today, and meet and talk. So he didn't back off on anything. Then Zelensky decided to, in his usual theatrical way, to say, "Well, I'll go personally to show I'm super serious. I'm going to be super negotiation."
Dude never misses a photo op, Ted. Right there with Erdogan. There.
True. Don't get between that man and a microphone or a camera. You could be trampled. Anyway, the talks are supposed to resume today. At the last report that I heard before we went on the air, Manila, the two are actually in different cities, though, right? Like the Yukis are in Istanbul, and the Russians are in Ankara, which they're not next door to each other. But obviously that can be resolved. They can, I assume the Russians will now fly to Ankara. I mean, from Ankara to Istanbul, which is not very far to fly. Anyway, Zelensky is now saying that Putin should attend in person to show that Russia is serious. I mean, I would say the fact that Russia sent a team, and by the way, the symbolism of it is that, these are the same people who were trying to enforce the Minsk Accords that the Ukrainians violated. So this is Putin's way of saying, we are back where we were 3 years ago. And as far as we're concerned, nothing has changed. We want the same thing that we wanted before February 22nd, 2022. And so that's why he's sending the same people. Zelensky, for his part, is like between a rock and a Trump place, right? Because he is getting pressure from all over the place, from the situation on the ground, and from Trump, who's made very clear that the blank check is no longer going to be forthcoming. Anyway, at a press conference on Tuesday, Zelensky said, "This is no problem. I can do it. It's a Russian narrative that I cannot speak with Putin. Nobody but me can conduct negotiations on sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine on our course." All right, I don't care if Zelensky is violating Ukrainian law. It's just amusing. I don't think Russia cares either. But it just shows how stupid it was.
Hypocrisy. They're pointing out, obviously, it was a law that this dude passed in his official term of office, because let's remember, he is officially out of office. That expired last March. So, like it or not, little dude, that's a law that you passed, that you cannot negotiate with Russians. But as demonstrated by many leaders of democratically elected leaders in Western democracies, even in 2025, to be a democracy, the president, the elected leader, the prime minister, whoever it is, they are above the laws. They can have COVID parties. They can talk to whoever they want, regardless of any law. So the fact that the old Ruskies are pointing that out, it's not wrong.
By the way, for the people who are listening, I'm sorry that you can't see what we're seeing, but the video here shows the Ukrainian presidential jet. And I'm just wondering if maybe Ukraine's going to reach out to the Qataris and ask for an upgrade.
Like, hey, bro, can you hook me up with the jumbo jet?
I hear you got a bunch of them lying around.
I heard you got a big deal with Boeing coming up. $200 billion.
Qataris are like how Elvis Presley used to give Cadillacs to his friends.
Is that a thing? Or
it was a thing.
Oprah.
Yeah.
I was going to say Oprah with her show. She was like, you get a car and you get a car and you get a car. And so that's why everybody wanted to show up to the Oprah tapings back in the day, because she was giving out Toyota Corollas to everybody. So
nowadays, with the downsizing of the U.S., you'd be lucky to come out of the Oprah show with an ATV. But yeah.
No, you'd be lucky to walk out with a swag bag. Well, look, I want to show Ted what little dude was saying upon arrival, like him running his mouth.
By the way, with such a small president, they could have a smaller plane. The Gulfstream would be probably big enough for him.
He says, Gulfstream. He's a wee man. He says, our delegation is at the highest level. Foreign ministry, my office, military, our intelligence, representatives of all intelligence agencies, by the way, to take any decisions that might lead to the expected and just peace. As for the high-level meetings, we will begin by meeting with President Erdogan, with all the extended Turkish delegation. We are in touch with the American side. They, I think, will also be present in Turkey on a high level. Let's see. I don't officially know the level of Russians yet, but from what we see, it looks more like a decorative level. We will think about what to do next, what our steps will be after talking to President Erdogan. I think we will have several hours for an important talk and very important decisions. We must understand what the level of the Russian delegation, I'm sure, is first. Yeah, before we're capable of making any decisions from here. So
this is just...
This
is inconsequential. It doesn't, the level, I understand that there's posturing here, but it's like the Ukrainian president wasn't, Putin never said, hey, Z-Man, you better show up personally. That's on him. He wanted to go on a trip on a junket to Turkey. That's on him. You have a good time, right? The Russians just said, we'll send people, you send your people, our people will talk to your people. Right. It's not like Putin needs to be there personally. He can, I think it would be nice maybe to have a Camp David moment, but that's not going to happen. Sure. It would be great to see these two men come to agreement and shake hands. But again, that's not meant to be. And who cares? The point is that what's on the table is on the table. It'll either be agreed to or it won't be agreed to. This could go either way, obviously, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I'll say it has a 55-45 chance of resulting in some kind of forward momentum. I don't think you're going to come out of today with a peace agreement. I think you're going to come out of today with a ceasefire agreement and some basic
I don't think so.
Talking points.
I don't think so. I don't think anything is going to come up today. I think it's just cracking the door open to be like, okay, so I'm going to size you up. You're going to size me up. Okay. And nothing's going to come of it. Vladimir Putin has stated squarely that you all are not going to get a 30-day truce. Put up or shut up. Make a full and final peace deal, or we're just going to keep steamrolling through this bitch until I get to Kiev. Of course, Vladimir Putin, a lot more polite than me. But
he doesn't want to do that, though.
He doesn't want to.
Russia knows history, and it's always better when you're a superpower to rent than to own. Sure.
But I don't think he's gonna. A temporary truce of any sort, any ceasefire of any sort is. I'm gonna say it right now, 100% off the table. I don't think anything like that is going to come of today. I think today is just going to be seeing the Russians and the Ukrainians looking at each other face to face. This dude, that's the head of the delegation that was stood up in Turkey back in 2022. This is the dude that's going to be like, dude, I tried to save hundreds of thousands of lives 3 years ago.
And he's going to be like, I've been waiting.
I've been waiting for 3 years, so now we're finally talking. And I don't think anything is going to come of it. The Russians have been very, very, very clear about exactly what it is they want. They are thus far and will continue to be the victors of this whole thing. They will dictate the terms for the final outcome. And any temporary anything, I say, is off the table. They've said it over and over, and I think the Russians mean business because they always do. They telegraph exactly what it is that they want. And I would know. I worked with many of them. They tell you exactly what it is they want to see, they want to hear, what they expect. They don't mince any words. So,
well, we'll see.
Well,
we shall see. Well, by tomorrow's show,
but I don't think so.
By tomorrow's show, we will know all.
And I'm curious to know. I mean, if Witkoff is going to show up, because they're in more or less that area, right?
No, the reports are that he's going with his imbecilic general sidekick.
Right, Kellogg.
Yeah.
He's going to go. I don't know what Kellogg's going to do, except throw
hopefully Kellogg will
shade.
Will be quiet, because
that guy is an old idiot.
He's best. He is best quiet, best served silent. So
we heard from Zelensky's own words. He said, "We've already talked to the Americans," because, I mean, let's face it, it's the Americans who are issuing the dictates. It's not.
This is happening because we're here because of Trump, no question.
Right, because Trump said,
"No
Dude,
more.
You better go.
No mas.
You better go. You better show up. I may or may not show up because I'm hanging out with the Emirati
He's in the neighborhood.
Yeah, he's in the UAE. He's like, if I got time between, wining and dining in Dubai, then maybe, he's in Abu Dhabi. But once, I've been to the palace, by the way. Wow. I'm
sure.
But that's where Trump is, hanging out there at the palace, and he may or may not cruise over to Istanbul. It's not super far away, a few hours. At this time of day, if he's not there yet, it's probably not going to happen because of the time difference, because it's like 10 o'clock at night over there, or something. I always mix up the time difference. But anyway, it's the evening over there. I don't think it's going to happen. And I think nothing's going to come of it other than Witkoff saying, you better get whatever deal that you can get to end this thing with Putin ASAP, because POTUS is ready to cut you off, dude.
All right. Let's move on to our main topic today.
Oh, boy.
The U.S. Supreme Court will hear historic arguments. Those arguments were scheduled to begin 20 minutes ago in Washington, D.C. The Trump administration is challenging the constitutional provision, the 14th Amendment, which guarantees automatic citizenship to anyone born in the United States, period. However, the legal arguments are not going to focus on that question. That's for another day at another time. They're going to question, this focuses on whether nationwide injunctions issued by federal judges are constitutional. So here's basically the background, right? After the Civil War, the 14th Amendment was passed. It was meant to reverse the Dred Scott decision, which said that Black people, whether they were free or slaves, could not become U.S. citizens. So I think it's 1868, I could be mistaken about that, the 14th Amendment was ratified, and it says, all persons born or naturalized in the U.S. and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, in other words, places like, say, the old Panama Canal Treaty zone where John McCain was born, or like Guantanamo Bay, are citizens of the United States. Challenges to birthright citizenship have not really ever been considered legit until recently, because 127 years ago, an Asian dude basically won at the U.S. Supreme Court by a unanimous vote, and basically said that anyone who's born here, even though that was not what the 14th Amendment was originally about, is that the effect of it is that anyone born on U.S. soil, and right. People, right-wingers will call those anchor babies, for example, are U.S. citizens. In 1940, Congress passed a law that codifies that 14th Amendment for birthright citizenship. Trump, however, is one of the people on the far right who say that the Constitution does not guarantee that. So, on day one of his current term, he issued one of his zillion executive orders This one prohibits automatic citizenship for people who are born here if their parents entered the country illegally or were here legally but on a temporary visa. And by the way, I think that one of the reasons that he will fail here on trying to overturn birthright citizenship is that he's trying to, by executive fiat, declare the terms of like when birthright citizenship works and when it doesn't work, right? And I think it's kind of like, he can't really do that either. Anyway, immigration rights and 22 of the states went to court, and 3 federal judges, both conservatives and liberals, have said that the executive order is blatantly unconstitutional. 3 appeals courts have also refused to unblock those orders at the request of the Trump administration. So now the Trump administration is before the Supremes. But they're not asking the court to rule on the executive order. That's a different question. What they're saying is that what Trump wants is for SCOTUS to say that federal district court judges cannot rule against the administration on a nationwide basis, only within their own federal jurisdictions, like, say, the Ninth Circuit in Northern California could only apply to their own district there. So the result is that there's going to be a few arguments about birthright citizenship, but the debate here, the legal question, is going to focus on what are called universal or nationwide injunctions. So what this is really about, this is a separation of powers issue, Manila. It's going to be, they're trying to determine to what extent the judiciary, in the form of federal district courts, can limit the powers of the executive branch, namely the president of the United States. So basically, if the president signs an executive order, and then a local district, well, a regional federal district judge issues a stay, an injunction, which basically means that executive order does not go into effect until it comes to a final, until it comes to trial and there's a final ruling on it. The question is, right now, some of these rulings are applying nationwide. Is it possible to say, no, you're going to have to do it a la carte or not? I don't know where the court's going to come down here, but I suspect they're probably going to rule against Trump for a variety of reasons. I think mainly they're not, even though they're not supposed to be considering birthright citizenship here, judges going to judge. They know what this is about. And they know
where this is headed.
They've already ruled 7-2 against Trump in a previous matter on this issue on deportations. So I don't think they like what Trump and the administration are doing and the way that they're doing it. But I also think they're not going to give up the judiciary's prerogatives. And also, it's possible to imagine an executive order that's just absolutely noxious, right? Like, I don't know, let's say there's an executive orders that say all Jews must be killed. And so, you shouldn't really have to go district by district to get that stopped in a court. You should be able to get in front of a judge in any of the districts, in the federal districts in the country, and say, no, the president can't do that. And so until we get, and then we're going to deal with it at trial. Because otherwise, you're going to have harm will be committed during the weeks, months, years before the case finally makes its way to a final adjudication. I think that's what's going to happen here.
I tend to agree with you. I know these are two separate things, but the underlying argument here that Trump is trying to make the case for is to rule against the 14th Amendment itself, is to actually translate it in his image.
Well, he's arguing that this is about original intent, right? Like basically that the original intent was only to make sure that freed slaves were U.S. citizens, right. Well, and that the late 19th century case that codified it to apply to everybody.
Wong or Kim, that's
right, is not
Chinese.
Was it illegitimate? He's asking the U.S. Supreme Court effectively he will be asking the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn that case. The thing is that lots of constitutional amendments have been construed and expanded to include rights that were not originally considered. I mean, for example, the Second Amendment. Very clearly, the original intent was to make sure that it was possible to form militias. That has since been expanded to include the right to bear arms as individuals and who don't belong to a militia.
And the other people on the other side of 2A is saying, well, nowhere in 2A does it say that you can have automatic rifles. Right.
Or the Fifth Amendment, I mean, you're right not to, the Miranda warnings come out of the Fifth Amendment. That's a late 20th century ruling. There was no such thing really as the police, the way that we know them when the Constitution was ratified. And they,
slave
I don't think
back then.
It was never conceived that you would be, if an officer of the law approached you, that you could refuse to answer their questions in order to avoid incriminating yourself. There's a lot of, we can go on for days talking about all the.
Let's hear first what POTUS had to say, because remember, he signed this whole thing, this whole executive order on day one, as one of the things he promised to do. So in reference to this birthright thing.
However, it's interesting.
Okay, let me play that.
Birthright citizenship is about slavery. That's not about tourists coming in and touching a piece of sand and all of a sudden they're a citizenship. They're a citizen.
Washington's Attorney General.
So that's his interpretation, which is perfectly in line with, it sounds like.
By the way, he doesn't seem to understand what this is about, right? It's like, it's not about tourists touching a piece of sand. It's about tourists maybe sitting 9 months pregnant on that piece of sand and dropping a baby on that piece of sand. And then the question is, what happens to that baby? It's interesting. The U.S. is one of the few countries in the world that has birthright citizenship. However, every country ought to have it. I mean, it's kind of a fundamental decency principle that a child should not be punished for the sins of his or her parents. And so if your parents break the law, bring you to the U.S., or you break the law, come into the U.S., and then give birth to you, you shouldn't be punished for that act. You had nothing to do with it. Right. You were luggage inside your mom's belly. Had
or not even a twinkle in your parent's eye. Like if you have a group of illegal migrants, right, undocumented, they
we can go more extreme, and I'm dying to hear Robbie. This.
Well, wait. Before the baby is a twinkle.
Robbie, here's my question for you.
Sure.
What if you're, let's say, a tourist visiting the Statue of Liberty from, say, Spain, and you are raped by an American citizen or an illegal immigrant, whatever. You're raped by someone, and then you give birth to you don't believe in abortion, so you give birth to that baby here. Should that baby be deported back to Spain, or should that baby stay in America?
100%, yes. And if you're going to be here, so if you're going to be here on a tourist visa for 9 months, there's something significantly wrong with that. And second of all, I just want to point something out.
Could be a work permit.
Both of y'all are pro-choice, so stop fucking pretending you care about babies. Y'all both advocate murdering babies in the womb. So let's just take that off the table right off the bat. You both advocate the judicial execution of children. So that's a non sequitur. Second, when
medical execution. Let's be clear here. We don't want the judges to kill them.
If either way, you have no problem. Neither one of y'all have a problem if an unborn baby is murdered by its mother. Neither one of y'all care.
I just believe that the U.S. government should stay the fuck out of my vagina and my uterus. It's none of their fucking business.
Well, guess what? The baby's not your body. So suck an egg. So there's that.
My body.
It's not a parasite.
Well, let's stay focused here.
So, but that's just the point that I made.
It's an interesting aside, but let's get to the matter at hand here.
So the illegal alien baby.
Hold on.
The illegal alien baby. Then it didn't ask to be there, like you said.
Well, guess what? The baby that you support the mother murdering didn't ask to be conceived, but yet here we are, and you have no problem with that baby being killed. So stop pretending that you care about the.
Would you be okay with that then? Would you be okay with that? Would you be okay with the illegal immigrant mother that she aborts that illegal baby then?
No, murder is murder. Murder
So
is
she
murder.
has to bear the rapist's kid,
Yes.
and the rapist's kid has to be deported.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think you should be able to be punished for
I don't
the
think that
sins of another person.
Well, I mean, you're advocating. I agree with you. I oppose collective punishment. I do.
Okay. All right. Well, so
there you go.
all right. So obviously, there's the underlying issue here, which is birthright citizenship. Look, it creates, the thing is, birthright citizenship does create some small problems. Like there's a small number of
Very
people.
small problems.
Very
Right.
small.
Very small
Not
problems.
very many people.
Very small problems.
How many people come to the United States and if with the purpose of creating an anchor baby? Not many. And then, like, you know what? But however, the problems that it solves or avoids are much bigger. Like, for example, in France, where you have first, second, third, fourth generation Arab French who are now illegal. And that means they're not going to call the cops if they see a crime. They're not going to be able to join a trade union and fight to avoid being exploited by their boss if they are in trouble with the law, you know,
They can't join the military. Let's say the other way.
Yeah, they can't defend France. They, you know, so they have to always be living in the shadows, and it's stupid. And not to mention, also, it encourages them to become criminals and join gangs, which they do, and deal drugs and weapons and stuff.
So I have a solution for that too, Ted. You deport the fuckers. It's
Well,
easy.
This
is easy. This is
their parents.
You're creating an underclass, though.
Right. We're
Ted,
talking.
I hate to tell you this. We already have an underclass. It's called the worker class. All right, we already
that's
have.
true.
Hold on. But we're talking about in this example, the French people.
Sure.
It doesn't matter how many generations your family, like somebody's great grandma could have been Moroccan and illegally came to the U.S.
Correct.
But her kid, which is now the grandma, and then the mom, and then the kid that's born there, none of those people ever get French citizenship. Meanwhile, Ted conveniently gets born in Columbus, Ohio, and gets French citizenship.
Cambridge, Massachusetts, but same thing.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. But born stateside. But Ted, end of the day, he gets a French passport by virtue of his mother being French. Yep. Why is that fair? In France's, like, how can we follow France's footsteps? And then
easily
you see the level of crime that's involved in all and just this mishmash of citizenship status, because people have been there 3, 4, 5 generations sometimes, especially from colonized countries like Morocco, right? Or Libya, that they are ethnically Libyan, they are ethnically Moroccan. They have been in France for 200 years, and none of those people are citizens. How is that fair where you see a Ted Rall there is?
Well, first of all, life's not fair. Hate to break it to you. It's really not.
Yeah, but we're trying to make
sucks.
it fair. That's part of the point.
And listen, either you have a nation or you don't. See, back in the old day, like how the Z-Man is right there in Istanbul, it used to be called Constantinople. Want to know why it's not called Constantinople anymore? Because the Turks actually, they sacked up, they went, they took it, they conquered Greece. Back in the old day, if you wanted to take over another country, you would have to make this thing called an army and march on it. Now the West is so pathologically weak, we're so inept. We open up our borders and we just invite the whole fucking third world in. And we say, please come on in, because we don't want to have to pay a living wage to our people that live here. We don't want to have to make an argument in this so-called democracy. We want to import a brand new serf working class. We want to drive down wages. We want to completely destroy the native population that built these places. And if you complain about it, you're racist. Sorry, I fundamentally oppose that objective. I am an American. My family's been here since the 1600s. Manila, yours came here back in the 60s or 70s, whatever it was. Glad to have you. Glad you're here. Welcome to the club. Glad to have you as an American. Ted, same as you. If I had my way, you wouldn't be a dual citizenship. That's stupid too. But at the end of the day, either you have borders or you don't. And if your first act is violating the law of the nation which you want to go live, I am sorry. Get the hell out. And just because you pop a squat and fire out a baby does not make you any more of a citizen than you were when you first got here. No, close the borders, deport every damned one of them, make them go away. America for Americans, Europe for Europe. I am unapologetic on this. I will not bow down on this. I will fight you every step of the way. And if Trump had any balls at all, the only federal court system that the Constitution allows for is the Supreme Court. The federal judiciary should be dissolved today. It is unconstitutional.
Question.
Sure.
Let's say someone comes to the United States legally,
Sure.
and they are granted a green card, and they follow. There's no question whatsoever about their legal
like my
status.
family did when they came here in the 70s.
Okay, so like my mother did. She was a French citizen, but she married my father, so she then ultimately she took she became a citizen during the bicentennial year, which was very cool. Anyway, point is, without the 14th Amendment, the kid is not necessarily a citizen of the United States, right? If there's no 14th Amendment, like you could end up with, let's say, my dad, he was born in Chicago, meets my mom in Paris. He totally legitimately marries her. I'm born a couple years later, but I'm not a citizen.
Sure.
You don't see the problem there?
No,
without the 14th Amendment, I'm not a citizen.
Well, okay, because there were citizens of the United States before the 14th Amendment was a thing. So that argument in and of its face is stupid. I mean, we had citizens before that. The 14th Amendment had to do with freed slaves. The Constitution is not a living document. It says what it says. And as far as the example that you had about the Second Amendment, that's unconstitutional too. Every state in the union should nullify these gun laws. They are unconstitutional. The Constitution is clear about what the militia is. The Militia Act says that the men who are 16 years of age up to 60 are members of the militia. I am the militia. Ted, you are the militia. We are the militia. So that is the point. And I mean,
I'm too old for the militia. I aged out.
Are you just
a year and a
passing?
half
well,
ago.
then congratulations. Then you're aged out, but your son's in there.
That's
hey, guess
too bad
what?
because I'm handy
It's
with a gun.
Hey, guns are awesome. Here's the dumbest thing, and here's the part that I do not understand about the position that open border types like you and Manila are.
I'm not an open border type at all.
To hell you're not, because you're advocating it right the hell now. You're advocating it right now.
I'll give you my no. I believe the border
at all.
I think the
Sure,
border
you
should be
both
absolutely.
You both should have voted for Kamala. Because
I vote for Kamala.
Because
I didn't
what
vote
you're-
for Kamala.
I didn't vote for Kamala.
I said y'all both should have because y'all advocating what she went for.
No, we're not. Neither Ted or I are into
Sure
open
you are.
borders.
Not at all.
We openly said it.
We're both we're both
disagree.
nationalists.
I fundamentally disagree with you because y'all's problem is the method which it is done. If you come across the river, okay, that's bad. But if you come across the river and drop a baby, well then welcome, stranger. We're glad to have you here. Sorry, that is hypocrisy of a glaring scale. I say deport them all. I'm consistent with my positions.
Well, I got to say the problem wouldn't exist if not for the poor governance of the country. I mean, for the most part, the deportations take so long to happen that that this happened. If Manila and I had our way, the border would be carefully controlled. No one would come in who's not legally allowed to be here, and this issue wouldn't arise. If you were pregnant and you were not admitted legally to the United States, you would thrown back out of that. You were, thank you for coming, but you're not admitted. Try another time. Then this wouldn't happen, right? We have a hodgepodge of really poorly run border policies.
That's exactly it.
And everything is cobbled together, sort of like we go through these weird phases of open the border, let everyone in. And then it's no, close it all up, throw everyone out. And then we go back. And so, immigrants aren't stupid. They know the history and they know that they have to, if they sneak, first of all, there's no way to get in here legally. That's part of the problem too. You can be brilliant, hardworking, no criminal record.
Anymore
you
immigrants.
Can't get here. There's no way to come in legally. So People
But
sneak
yeah,
in, and they
Ted,
know if
that is such crap. That is such
and
BS.
here's the really funny part.
Millions of migrants came across during the Biden administration, and you're going to tell me
Yes.
straight-faced,
Yeah.
you're going to tell me straight-faced that there's no way to get here? That is complete bullshit.
Well,
No, legally.
Legally. Well, they came
Why
in.
would you come here legally
Very,
go through the
very-
process if you can just walk across the damned river?
Well,
so that's the whole point. That's why they do it illegally, is because our legal process is so
My way
broken.
ends that problem.
Do you want to?
It's so
you want to know?
broken.
I mean, Robbie, it's so broken that if you decided to, that literally when you apply for citizenship during one of these periods of liberalization, they will demand that you have proof that you entered illegally, and that you can show, like, say, electricity bills that show that you've been here living illegally for years. In other words, you have to come in illegally in order to be legalized. You can't. I mean, it's so perverse. Like, literally,
Right.
there's no way to follow the rules, because there are no rules. The rules literally are be illegal. That's
Right.
the system
it's
that both parties have set up for years.
It is so broken that it's like, if this is our home, well, we live in a fucking shanty, because it's like part
True.
thatched roof of tin and aluminum and teak wood and plywood over there. It's all just fucking thatched together. Our immigration system is completely fucking broken. If it was run more effectively and more efficiently, then fewer people would be bum rushing the
You're
damn
advocating
border.
putting people in and staying by virtue of
but
firing
here's
out
the thing.
Junior. That's
Here's
not
the
pushing.
thing. Here's the thing.
given
when-
the system that we have. Right.
I don't think most
stupid.
people. I don't
This is
think most
suicidal.
people are deliberately
It's
making
like, look,
anchor
it's like
babies.
I'm in favor of a
Not
minimum
most of
wage,
them.
of raising the minimum wage, because it's the system that we have. But I wish we had a system of socialism where nobody had to work for a living. So the
Tim.
point is that, like, we're talking right now about the system that we have. The system sucks, but within the system,
Final minute.
it's all attached with duct tape and baling wire here, right? So I mean, the thing is,
Okay, you cannot on one hand say that you advocate for workers while supporting a system that drives down workers' wages. That is hypocrisy.
that's why I believe it. That's why I
peak
believe in
fucking
controlling
hypocrisy.
our borders.
Well,
Illegal
then,
immigration is
congratulations,
very
you're
bad
Team
for
Robbie.
workers' rights.
Then you're Team Robbie. The
I am
14th
on that.
Amendment, the 14th Amendment had nothing to do whatsoever, and I've used
I
this.
don't believe
I've
in
used
the-
this example dozens of times.
Okay, so the thing is, Robbie, let me just say, if the Constitution is not a living document,
It is not.
okay, I'll stipulate that for the sake of this argument. But if it's not, the whole country is going to fall apart even faster than it already has, because you can't amend the fucking Constitution. So
Sure
whenever
can.
something,
There's an
no,
amendment
you really
process
can't.
to it.
You really
No,
can't.
there is.
There's no
There
way.
really
to-
is.
Not actually. I mean, we haven't
Sure there is.
significantly amended
You're
the US
telling me you
Constitution
can't add an
in
amendment to the
70
Constitution.
years.
You're telling me you cannot add an amendment
Well, I'm
to
just
the
saying
Constitution.
practically, because practically it's so hard. It's
Right.
literally, if you look it up, it's the hardest constitution in the world to
Sure.
amend, which is why it never gets amended. In France, they have an annual constitutional amendment, convention, and they consider, like, oh, this came up, so maybe we need an amendment for that. They don't have a living constitution
many
in
times
France.
the French
In
government-
France, they amend the constitution as needed. We
Okay,
can't do that.
Okay, let's have 2 points for you
There's
real
good
quick,
and bad to
because another we're going over. One, the federati. Ask the Romans how that worked out for them. Spoiler, not so fucking well.
Yeah, I read
Second-
my Edward Gibbons. I read my Gibbons.
Well, then congratulations. You're once again going Team Robbie. So I'm glad to have you on the team. Second, the French government has been replaced how many times since the 1800s? 4. So
Oh, more than that, yeah.
I mean, it's inherently unstable. It's an inherently unstable system. Europe is in the process of committing suicide. The United States is currently in the process of committing suicide. If you want to have civil war, then keep doing what you're doing right now. Keep advocating what you're advocating right now. Keep giving the government a pass for what they're doing right now, because eventually the people who are like me, who are stretched thin and are just completely ignored by both political parties, are eventually going to say, fuck it. And when that happens, this entire system is going to explode.
Well,
Keep doing what you're doing. If you're in civil war, keep doing what you're doing.
But Robbie, I do care about people who have committed no crime and done nothing wrong, right?
You came here illegally. You committed a crime.
If you're a child,
we're talking about the baby.
I'm talking
about the baby that's born here.
I think there's a legal argument to be made for deporting the child. I mean, for deporting the parents, but the child has no free will, right?
As
you know, Robbie,
becomes a ward of the state.
Western philosophy
we
and
need more of
jurisprudence
that.
and law is based on state of mind, right? So,
Sure.
like, if your state of mind is incapable of making that decision from a practical or psychological point of view, you're not guilty of a crime. So, like, how are you? You come here when you're 4. I'm sorry, when your parents bring you here. Your mom gets pregnant.
You're a dreamer.
Here. Yeah, whatever.
That's different. But if you're born here,
Manila, your dreamer is a nightmare.
I've known dreamers, and they were as American as you.
Quick question for you, Manila. In the area of Northern Virginia that you live in, has crime been increasing? Yes or no?
Yes.
And is it people who look like me that commit those crimes, or is it people a little bit browner?
Off to the races we go.
So far,
listen, I am not playing this game.
The crimes that are being committed are, by and large part, not people that look like me, but they're either people that look much darker skinned, but not Latino, or
is it safe to say that they're probably from the immigrant community?
Hold on, they look more like Clarence Thomas and more like Justice Sotomayor.
Okay, so here's the point that I'm trying to make.
And I don't think
maybe it's them.
Types are illegal.
Either you have laws or you do not. If you come across the border illegally, I'm sorry. Hey, and to your point about the dreamers, if you get to come here like that Hispanic girl who got arrested in Georgia because her daddy ran a red light, hey, sucks to be you. I'm sorry about going to your prom, but guess what? When you get sent back to the shithole country from which you were spawned, you get.
But you weren't spawned there.
But you
were spawned here.
But you get to take that great American education and make that place better. And you want to know why I have no sympathy for her? She's had all of her freaking life to go through the legal process. Her parents have had all their freaking their entire time that they've been here, while their kids are being educated by the American taxpayer, which they contribute nothing to the taxpayers.
On this point,
they
agree.
can go.
I don't understand the dithering. I mean, if I were them, if I were in that situation, I'd be way up into getting legalized ASAP.
But why?
No fucking around.
Why would you do it? Why would you do it? I mean, we're a nation of immigrants. You got to follow your heart. You got to be compassionate. Oh, no, you do not. Either you have laws or you don't. And you know what? Last point. If all this unskilled labor, if it's so good for the American economy, why are the shithole countries that they come from, why are they still shitholes? It's because they are uneducated. They're coming here for welfare. Let's call it what it is. They're coming here for the benefits. They're not coming here to be Americans.
Show that. Yeah, I mean, actually, they really don't receive welfare in nearly as high a rate as the people who are already here.
So you're telling me that the dreamer who comes here, let's just say Manila's right, the kid gets spawned here, grows up, goes to school, gets a free public education, gets all these perks. If the kid has to go to the emergency room because that's where they're going to go because their parents are too fucking pathetic to get citizenship, that they're not going to get free medical care at the taxpayer's expense. Sorry, Ted, that's welfare.
I mean,
that's a lot of ifs. That's a lot of ifs.
Not a lot of ifs.
But the statistics, the studies are very clear that like illegal immigrants, they really, if anything, they pay into the system because they pay taxes. And they don't collect Social Security, for example.
Okay, so hold on. So then
they pay into the system, but they don't collect out.
Okay, how do they pay into the system if they're paid under the table? There's no payroll tax. Explain that.
Well, a lot of the times
talk slowly so I can
they
understand.
use fake Social Security numbers and they pay
into
the system.
Hey, guess what? Guess what, Ted? Once again, you're Team Robbie. They're committing a crime using identity theft.
Well, if you want to, you know what? Anyone who wants to break into my bank account and deposit money that I never encountered, they're welcome to do that.
Bye-bye. Zero sympathy. Goodbye.
Really? So you don't want me to hack into your account and drop money into it? You'll be upset with me?
No, because I didn't earn it. If I don't earn it, I don't want it.
Yeah. Well, that's fair too. But I'll make this last point. The mass load of immigration, and this is actually supports Robbie, I guess, but in California, we know has been running billions in the red.
Forever.
Gavin Newsom is right now proposing a change to the Medi-Cal system. That is the state version of Medicare, changing the Medi-Cal system into basically either removing illegal migrants who apply for the Medi-Cal services system, or to have them pay a $100 monthly due for their California benefits of having Medicare. It's Medi-Cal. And that can be decided as soon as this coming January. So in the course of the next 6 months. Granted, I believe this is his move to lurch towards the middle so he can appear more moderate and run for president. But regardless, the fact that California is in this position is because 2 or 3 years ago, California had decided writ large for everybody, poor, whatever you are, whatever your migration, your citizenship status is, California decided if you are in California, you show residency in California, you will get Medi-Cal, which is the medical aid, right? You will get that benefit by virtue of living in California, regardless of status. And as it turns out, it's making the state go broke.
Imagine that. If only someone could have seen that. You know, if you give something, if you give away something for free, you run a deficit. And I can already hear the screeching over on YouTube on Rumble. Robbie's a racist. Robbie's a bigot. Robbie's a white supremacist. I don't care what you call me. I do not care. And that's
by the way, we have some news from how the oral arguments have been going so far. So far, they seem to be breaking down along the ideological lines of the court. Clarence Thomas is very sympathetic to the government's position on this and is even using the same exact terminology as the government lawyer, calling them universal injunctions rather than nationwide injunctions. Meanwhile, Justice Sotomayor, a liberal, says that the government's position, quote, makes no sense because there would have to be hundreds of thousands of individual lawsuits to enforce any ruling. And she also says that this would violate 4 Supreme Court precedents. At the same time, Justice Gorsuch, a conservative, is saying that, like, what about class action suits? Justice Kagan says, let's assume that, like, the Trump executive order is unconstitutional. Wouldn't that create a major problem? A patch, in terms of some people there would be inconsistent legality and people wouldn't know what rules to follow. So, we'll see what happens. But right now, it's a separation of powers issue. Yeah. One interesting point to me was it was pointed out that these rulings only started to become common in the 1960s, and that obviously there was a time before then when these rulings didn't happen. So perhaps they're not baked into the system solidly. So this is an originalist court, more or less. So we'll see what happens here. But I would say the government might be on the poised for a huge win that would really kind of change. It would make it much harder to challenge government action in any way. Like in my example, like, all Jews must be killed. Well, I mean, maybe
they all got to get moved to Toledo.
That's dumb. Because here you are. You're seriously going to go in and play the orange Hitler card?
Always.
Come on.
By the way, Democrats are just as capable of being Hitler as Republicans.
I know that's what
as we've seen in the last 4 years.
Robbie, do we have a word from sponsors? Because we got to get moving along on the time.
Let me look and see. I don't think we do, but I just want to just say one real quick thing while I look at this.
Okay.
I don't care what the race is of the illegal immigrant. You can be as white as me. I do not.
So it could be an Irish person.
Oh, Robbie, I got it. We would be remiss if I didn't ask you about Trump's love affair for the racist Afrikaners. that he's allowing into the U.S., they're illegal immigrants. They're not. I mean, I guess they're getting like asylum.
Well, no, they
status.
have papers.
No, they have
so
papers.
they're
They have
not-
asylum.
They have
So, I
asylum
mean,
status, but it's bullshit. It's political, right? It's like it's a dog whistle. It's like, hey, we're not going to let in dark-skinned people, but we're going to like not only let in whiteys, we're going to let in super racist whiteys.
Yeah, but you know what, Ted?
We don't
I
know
guess
if these people are racist, though.
No,
Ted,
we don't.
because their great
Manila, of course they
grandparents.
are. Manila,
Their
they're
great
white.
grandparents might have
Afrikaners,
been like
Afrikaners, though.
Manila,
I
everyone
get it,
knows.
but that's
Everyone
their
knows
great-grandparents.
that
No
everyone
sins of the
knows-
father on either way, on either side, Ted. If we're going to say no sins of the father for the kids that are here in the U.S., then we should apply the same rule to the Afrikaners, the descendants of these great grandparents of these Dutch colonizers in South Africa. I don't want to say these people. I know some Afrikaners. I know some. And I'm friends with some. They aren't racist, and it's not their fault that their great grandparents were colonizers in South Africa. It's
That's
not
true.
their fault.
Let me tell you what.
Again, there's a theme here, right?
Let me. So a couple of things just to quickly unpack. One, if South Africa wants to deport all their farmers and starve themselves to death, more power to them. I mean, that's it. They have the right to do that. You have the right to be stupid. Do it. Go ahead. Second, can either one of y'all straight face tell me that since the 1960s, when the Immigration Act was passed in 1965, that benefited Black Americans in any way, shape, or form? Has the importation of millions and millions of migrants, legally and illegally, has it benefited Black Americans?
Which act are you? I don't know what.
The Immigration Act of 1965 that old Teddy Kennedy pushed through. For those of you who are interested, I actually have a link on my Putinbot Speaks video or a podcast of him giving a speech talking about how it will not impact wages, it will not impact demographics, it will not be a problem at all.
That is not only not true. It could not be true.
100%.
Basic supply and demand, right? I mean,
100%.
more labor means lower wages.
So y'all answer my question: is Black America better off today or before 1965 in terms of wages, of housing, of having any socioeconomic power in this country at all?
Their situation has improved markedly, but it has not. It's improved at a slower rate than it would have if not for immigration.
Did immigration hurt the Black community? Yes or no?
No, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the white community too. Yeah.
Of course. I mean, it hurt my people. No, poor white people like me. It's not been good. It's been a disaster. It's been a disaster for the working class all the way around. And so my question is when will the American people wake the hell up and start actually advocating for their self-interest? Because if we keep doing what we're doing right now, this country will explode.
Well, I think the problem is it's shrinking, reduced. Resources are scarce. They're shrinking, and we're like rats in a cage when you take the food out. We start attacking each other.
Yeah. All right. We'll leave that topic there. We've gone on way too long on this topic. We got a couple more things to cover.
Deport every damned one of them.
All right. Tell us how you really
feel. We know
feel,
Robbie's position.
Thanks, Robbie. All right. So let's moving on. An Israeli airstrike in northern Gaza killed at least 50 people on Tuesday night, including.
I just got to put the warning out there, Ted. This is very, very graphic content that I'm about to play.
All right.
So if you guys are viewing this, just understand you're about to watch innocent people in Gaza.
22 children, 15 men, and an unknown number of 15 women and an unknown number of men died, according to the local hospital. Israel ramped up its latest offensive in Gaza, with the Israeli Security Cabinet recently approving a plan to, quote, capture Gaza. The Iran-backed Houthi rebels, meanwhile, fired 3 missiles at Israel during a 24-hour period between Tuesday and Wednesday, 2 of which were intercepted, 1 was not. Israel appears ready to react, ordering a set of 3 Yemeni ports to be evacuated. No sense of whether that'll happen or not. So things are striking. Also, the Israelis are leveling Rafah in Gaza, completely demolishing it and bringing in bulldozers to flatten any surviving buildings whatsoever.
Yeah, I just don't have much. I don't have anything to add to this. I mean, it's just tragedy after tragedy, and at this point, it's a culling in lumps of 50 and a couple scores at a time, right? I don't know what else to add to that. I mean, just it's so incredibly sad to see these images every day.
And U.S. drug overdoses dropped by 30,000 last year. That, according to
these images too, Ted.
Provisional report.
Hard to watch.
Okay, provisional report by the CDC, and 27% drop. That's from 110,000 to 80,000 last year. Is the biggest single decline on record in a year. That brings the annual rate of overdose deaths to their lowest level since prior to COVID in 2019. It's not really known why this dropped so fast, but experts say that I always have a problem pronouncing this.
Naloxone.
Naloxone, yeah. The anti-opioid drug that's, people can carry with them in case they happen to come across someone who's ODing. The FDA approved it for over-the-counter use in March of 2023. Methadone, of course, the old school opioid treatment, also became more readily available. You can use it at home. That's approved by the FDA as of last year. And then also it just might be that the way people are consuming drugs and which drugs that they're using may be affecting the OD situation. There's probably maybe fewer drugs that are being laced with fentanyl, I would imagine. Only 2 states did not see a drop in deaths. Nevada and South Dakota saw small increases. Deaths related to synthetic opioids, including fentanyl, saw the biggest drop. So I guess my theory is probably solid there. We had during the pandemic, there were basically fentanyl laced pot and a lot of other crap was all over the market. And now I guess for whatever reason, drug dealers are not doing that as much. So that's good.
Well, I mean, oh God, what a nasty disease that addiction is. And we have, look, a lot of people, because I would say a lot of this stems from economic conditions that so many people are seeking to self-medicate, because that's what these drugs are for. They're not, because you ain't dying from psychedelics here, folks. Like, you ain't dying from using shrooms, like the fun stuff, like you're rolling on E, which are also cut with all kinds of dirty stuff these days. These are people using really hard drugs to escape whatever it is, whatever circumstances they live in. And then the rest of us normies are having to walk. Look at that. This is I think a bus terminal in Philadelphia. There's needles everywhere. There are crackheads all over the streets.
I actually know that station, the train station.
You know it? This one, Allegheny, is that it?
It's a train station.
Train station. It just, we have a huge problem here, and a lot of it, I would say, stems from the economic conditions that have been created that are way beyond anybody's control. Obviously, are a lot of this. I know Trump is trying to tackle by way of tariff. I don't know how, the fentanyl thing or whatever. He's right to say that he called it a pandemic, an epidemic, I think is what he called it in the first term.
Yeah, he's right.
That. He's right. It is. But people wouldn't be turning to drugs if their life conditions were better. Do you know, Ted, that a Pew Research poll just recently found that 19 million children, at least that they know of, 19 million children in the United States are living in a household whose parents or the adult guardians are substance abusers. 19 million children.
I'm kind of feeling bad for my kid. Maybe I should, everyone else's parents are using drugs. Dad, why don't you use drugs?
Dad, Susie's mom is a crackhead. Why aren't you one? Everybody's parents are doing it.
You're not cool.
That's exactly it. This is sadly, this is the reality in America, is that people are turning to these things not because they're in a joyful place in life, that they can see any hope beyond these drugs. Like this, it's when you go to these cities, especially like here, like we're looking at Philly, we know what New York City looks like. You go to the streets of downtown LA and oh my God, I lived in downtown LA, Ted, just as it started sort of gentrifying, like in 2010. There was always homeless and they were on Skid Row, but since then the gentrification has been reversed and it is now Skid Row everywhere. And I mean, seriously, in the span of 15 years from when I lived there to where it is now, it is truly Skid Row everywhere. There are needles just everywhere. There's human feces. There are rats. There are third world conditions happening and diseases happening, running rampant, specifically in downtown Los Angeles. And these conditions are happening not only because it's just economic conditions, but a complete breakdown in the social infrastructure that we have to help people. And Biden didn't do anything about it. And Trump, I think, is exacerbating that by cutting the funding that would otherwise go towards cleaning these people up or getting them any help. And it's good news that some of these numbers are better. But if you look at those numbers just in general, and we look at a per capita death or a per capita addiction, it is out of fucking control. Other first world countries don't look like this, Ted.
That's true.
This is an American problem. You can go to Toronto.
Also,
it doesn't look like this.
There's also, I mean, look, self-medicating is an issue too. You're right, Manila. Basically, psychological and personal misery are at the core, are at the root of this. And I suspect that's why we've seen the drop as the pandemic lockdown has come to an end and more people are heading back to work. That's probably mostly what's behind this. But it's also, I think about like Kurt Cobain, who suffered from, chronic stomach pain. And he couldn't afford to get treated properly. So that's how he got addicted on heroin, because it made his stomach feel better. There's a lot of people who end up going on illegal opioids because they have like chronic back pain and they get addicted, of course, because that's what opioids be doing. So it's not, obviously there's some people who just do it because they're bored and stupid. But,
yes.
Whatever. There's a lot of different, obviously, there's as many reasons as there are people who do it.
Yeah, this is just a problem that even though the numbers are looking better today, writ large, it's still a massive problem in the United States. And I think the root cause, or causes rather, should be the things that are being addressed first and foremost, because if you nip it in the bud, people don't start to begin with. They don't get addicted.
True.
I think that's how you do it. It's just like, if you don't want to deal with abortion, don't get pregnant. How do you deal with not getting pregnant? How do you prevent pregnancy, right? Because teens going to be teen sexing and it's going to happen. How do you prevent that? And then you look at those ways of prevention, because you get ahead of it before it even becomes a problem, right? And we just have not done that as a country, and we have failed one another. We have failed our communities. We have failed our children, and this social, it's not even a safety net. It's just this social fabric. It truly is. It's a fabric of caring for your neighbors, looking out for, like if your neighbors look bad or their kids, you see that their parents are crackheads, like maybe be nice to that kid. Maybe show them that they're, if you have a house that's not a crack house, maybe be nice. Like, we just don't have that kind of society anymore, Ted. So these kids grow up with no hope. And as you can see, the drugs are readily available at any bus stop. So there you go.
Or train station.
So, any train station. If you're a kid in a big city, in Philly, in New York, in DC, go to any metro or subway station. You'll find whatever drugs you're looking for there. But we just haven't fixed that at the root. And I'm not saying, because the Say No to Drugs, the DARE campaign during the 80s that I remember growing up with Nancy Reagan and all of that. I mean, that was a shit ass campaign with a shit ass way of locking everybody up, that Joe Biden was, one of the principal designers of that bill, right? You remember that, like, and then
Absolutely.
what was it? What's her face? Hillary Clinton calling them super predators. You know, even in the 90s, this was a whole thing, right? That whole
Biden's
program
crime bill when he was a senator.
The Biden crime bill was a big fucking sham. And this was all happening in the 80s and 90s with the whole DARE program, and Nancy Reagan, that was her thing, dare to say no to drugs. And it was a whole fucking sham, because the root problem of this drug use is not just because people want to destroy their teeth and hair and skin and have fucking, holes in their faces. People don't want that. They turn to that out of desperation. They are desperate to feel better, to escape whatever horrors are their real lives. And our elected officials have done shit to address it. And that there is the problem. I mean, God, look at this. How can we look at this and say this is the land of the free?
Well,
like
you're free to die.
Do drugs. You're free to die. You're free to do drugs. You're like, it's very sad. I just look at these images and it's like, damn, like inner city. And
well, it's also such a waste of human resources, right? I mean,
yeah,
these are all people who they could be doing something productive, right? I mean, they could be starting a business. They could be working for, a charity. They could be working they could be, creating
just
and building.
functioning people in our community.
Taking care of their
friends,
aging parents, right? Whatever.
Yeah. But they turn to this kind of life, not because it's not a preference for people, and that's, I think, where our administration currently cutting funding for these things, even though, yeah, they're going to tout these numbers, Ted, because, Trump is notoriously anti-drug and anti-alcohol, right? Like, he does not drink, he doesn't smoke, he doesn't do any of those things. McDonald's is his drug of choice. But he's famous for, not, running in those rich people circles where they do a lot of the fancy, the fancy schmancy drugs and the good expensive alcohols. He doesn't partake in any of that. And so I know he's going to very soon, when he returns from the UAE, I'm sure he's going to truth about this and say, look, under my watch, the fentanyl numbers have dropped bigly. Americans are getting clean from drugs bigly, without really addressing the root cause of why there was a rise in this in the first place.
True.
And he's going to say China. He's going to say my tariffs are working because fentanyl isn't coming from China. So there's that, which is just a complete farce, I would say. Anyway, we'll leave that there, Ted. What do you say?
Sounds good.
Yeah. So with that, I guess it's good that fewer people are dying from drug overdose. Yay.
Yeah. No, it is good. Of course, obviously it's good.
Yay. But a lot fewer people should be dying from that if we had
it's still way too many.
Yeah. Lots and lots of people still be dying. We should check producer Robbie, thumbs up or down. Do we have to do a word from a sponsor? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Do we have a button?
I'm going to assume the answer is no.
No. Okay.
Right.
No word from sponsors today. All right. So that is going to do it for us. We'll be back again tomorrow on Friday, a Friday. And I don't know what's in store tomorrow, but I don't know. Maybe Trump be back from the Middle East. We'll see. Have a good Thursday, everybody. Don't do drugs. Give hugs,
Indeed.
not drugs.
Okay.
I like that one better.
God, so gay. All right.
Hugs, not drugs.
Cool.
Adios, amigos.
Bye.
Bye.